Show of hands, how many people have a dream for their life? Okay, just about everybody. How many people wake up every single day and in vivid clarity jump out and live that dream in gratitude every single day? So for all the people who didn't raise your hands, my question is for you. What are you waiting for? It's an interesting question. What does it take for us to be able to live the life of our dreams every single day, where our life is full of joy and love and peace, where our experience of life is effortless and success and money just flow to us, where we set big world-changing dreams and achieve them, but have an absolute blast in the process? That's what I'm here to share with you today. For all of you that know me, there's the table from Zag over here. And from my bio, you'll get the idea that I'm a pretty bold person. I set ambitious dreams, but I achieve them. And this process of my life has brought so much gratitude and so much profound success. I wake up every single day and I say, wow, I love this life. Sometimes it's with a big smile. Sometimes it's with one of those game faces. You know those ones. It's like, oh, I'm just going to get through it. But it wasn't always this way for me. In fact, when I was a child, I struggled with anxiety and depression. Like many of you in the room, I had trouble getting out of bed. Not just some days, but a lot of days. You see, I grew up with my mom, who's here, by the way. A single mom, a receptionist with the government, just above the poverty line. She gave everything to make my life amazing. But I still had challenges. That anxiety turned into troubles at school. I spent a lot of time in the hallway. I was alone. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I was a little bit overweight, and I was bullied. In grade 9, I just couldn't do it anymore, and I dropped out and went into the workforce. And I worked harder than everybody else because I had something to prove. I started a business, and through sheer will, I became financially successful. But something was missing. I just wasn't happy. And no matter how good things got, my life was still empty. That anxiety and depression continued, fueled by a fear that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough. And I tried to cope with alcohol, and when I couldn't sleep, with sleeping pills. Most people here will know something about what I mean. My health issues came about gently, and then they progressed more aggressively. I had colds that lasted a long time, stomach aches that turned into weird things like IBS and full-body stress itches. But I denied all of it until one day I was confronted with a choice. The choice that I will forever remember. I was in a lonely one-star hotel in Los Angeles, traveling to visit some random guru in hopes that he would have some kind of answer for my stage 4 cancer diagnosis. It was supposed to be a 5-star, a relaxing weekend away, treating myself. I was going to catch up on some reading scientific papers in search of a cure. And instead, I was almost scared away from that bath by a cockroach in the bathroom and brown dripping liquid from the ceiling. But I'm not a guy who gives up, so I got in the bathtub and I started reading those papers. And a few minutes into flipping through those papers, I came across the one that would change my life. In no uncertain terms, it clarified that the diagnosis that I had received from BC Cancer Agency, UPenn, and Yale was going to kill me. In a few short years, I'd be dead. I remember reading the paper and beginning to sob. You see, my entire life was about these things I feared. I ran, And I ran and I ran. I ran from everything that scared me. I ran from my fear of not being good enough. I ran from my fear of love because it might hurt me. I ran from difficult situations. But now I could run no longer. I was in the depths of despair. My worst fear was coming true. I was going to die a meaningless death, alone, a wasted life. And in that moment, it became clear what I needed to do. That fear was controlling me, and I had a choice. Change or die. And it became my commitment to do what was needed to embrace that darkness and those shadows. Because if I didn't, I would be dead. And it was in this moment of darkness that I discovered the secret to living an epic life, a life that exceeds all of your wildest dreams. Fear. It's all about fear. You see, fear is one of the most powerful forces in our life. Every discussion we have, every relationship we start, every job we take, every dream we set, fear weaves its tentacles into our life. And it sabotages our dreams. Fear starts with I. It's the separating force of the ego. It teaches us limitation. It teaches us what we can't have. But it's a necessary part of being human. It protects us from things like modern-day equivalents of tigers and bears. Probably that's like BlackBerries and iPhones, right? And email, of course. But the problem is it also protects us from things that are imaginary. And that's the issue. That most of the things we fear are imaginary. Some of you look up here and you see this guy. Inspiring. Wow, how did he overcome this stuff? Summit Everest, cure cancer, write a book, build a $100 million business. And you say, wow, he must be fearless. The truth is the exact opposite. I'm fearful. In fact, I'm afraid right now. But seriously, I'm afraid I'm going to forget what I'm going to say, or that you guys are going to judge me and not like me, or that I'm not going to connect with you. That fear is always there somewhere in the distance. No matter what we do, where we go, it's there. But would it really matter if everybody in this room didn't like me and I woke up? The next day, would it really change my truth? Would it really matter if I bombed on this talk? I'd just practice a little bit more for the next one. But if I was willing to be courageous and challenge the illusion of fear, what could my life be like then? So I want to ask you, what do you fear? When you set your dream out in front of you, the dream of your life, what comes up? What scares you? And to the answer to this question, I really want you to pay attention, because it's the key to setting you free. It's the key to unleashing the superhero that we were just talking about, because it's inside all of us. Anybody can create a vision board. How many people have a vision board? All right, about half the room. If you don't, you got to get with it. You go to Chapters, you buy some magazines, you cut them out, you put them in a collage, and you put it up on your wall. And then you look at it and you say, that's what my life could be like. And then maybe if you're really disciplined, you set a bunch of goals, put some words together, challenge yourself to create those goals. How many people have goals? Good. We're a pretty conscious room. Now, how many people have goals that are SMART goals, that challenge you to do the things that you're afraid of, that have time limits attached to them, but push you through to those dreams every single day? Show of hands. Okay, still quite a few, but a bunch that didn't raise your hands. You see, moving from dreamer to achiever takes a very special kind of discipline. It takes the willingness and courage to totally recontextualize the way we think about fear. And this is what I learned in my moment of darkness. I had ran my whole life into fear. I was now on the edge of the abyss. There was nowhere further to run. The things I feared, I created. But it was in that moment that it dawned on me. If I was going to get out of this crazy situation, I was going to need to think about it totally different and commit to run in the opposite direction, towards fear. I stand here today as the product of that decision. Terminal cancer, a couple years to live, no medical intervention, no trace of cancer in my body almost a decade after diagnosis. It's real. A life of profound meaning and gratitude, success, abundance. It comes only through the willingness to run towards fear rather than away. There were a lot of things I feared. My shadow, my darkness, my worthiness, love, those are all things that drove me in the opposite direction. But I decided to do something different, to accept my fear, to see it, to share it openly with people. I decided instead of running away from people and situations I didn't like, I was going to run into them, to chase them. And it was this resolve to challenge every single fear I had, which was many. To love others. Even a hug was scary back then. To accept a higher power. To tell the truth. Always. To share my truth. To set ambitious goals and commit to them publicly, even with the risk of humiliation. To see myself as worthy and to continually pursue those people who could help my dreams happen. It was nothing short of a 180, this change. And many times I was completely overwhelmed by fear. But I embraced it as what I knew it was. The most powerful, liberating force of our lives. In this journey, I came to see my relationship with fear as an obsession. You see, it's the secret that enables us to achieve anything. But this friction of fear is what gives our dreams lift. The friction of fear is what gives our dreams lift. Like an airplane driving down the runway, they have to take off into the wind. Otherwise, they don't get lift. And you don't see the wind, but you know it's there because you start shaking. We know that feeling, fear. For those of you that spoke today, I'm sure you had it in the belly too. Just like I did back there with all you guys jumping like crazy. We feel that fear. We feel that shaking. But it's just before we break through and the plane pops up and takes off. You know that feeling. You've been in an airplane. You're like, oh my gosh, are we going to crash? What's going to happen? And then, wow, we're flying. Okay, it's okay. We're taking off. Wow, we're going up high. Wow, this is great. Exact same thing. So I ask you again, what is it that you dream? And what is it that you fear? Now, this could just be any talk. You could just come and listen to me and say, wow, that was an inspiring guy. Maybe I'll add him on Facebook or LinkedIn, see what he's talking about. Go to his restaurant, Zen Conscious Lounge. They've worked really hard to do something really awesome. And it is really awesome. But I want this to be so much more for you. I want this to be a moment that changes your life, that changes the way you think forever forward. And if you let this be, if you help me let this be, it can be. This can be the moment that sets you free. Before I started speaking, we handed out a postcard. Now, there are 3 columns. You can start filling it right out now if you're really excited. But I would definitely like you to focus on this and start completing it before you leave here today, even if you write down just one word. I want to challenge you to think about it this weekend. The first column, I want you to write the things that you fear. When you set out this dream for your life, this thing that has you jumping out of bed and saying, yeah, I love it. This is great. Let's go. Let's go to work. Let's go to play. Let's do whatever we do. That dream, when you set that out, what comes up? What fears? What insecurities? What challenges? Write that down. And then beside it, I want you to write a couple goals that would break through that. How could you challenge yourself to push yourself through that? Like that airplane. Pull back the lever. Take off. And then I want you to describe what it looks like to fly. What it looks like to be on the other end of completing those goals. To be completely liberated from that fear. Still in the background, but you mastering it rather than it mastering you. Vivid detail, what the quality of your life looks like. What it feels like. I'm going to give you an example. I had issues with sharing my truth, with knowing who I was, with believing I had a purpose and something to share. So I decided I would challenge that and commit to learn to speak in public. Joined Toastmasters. How many Toastmasters in the room? All right. Way to go. That is hard stuff. I committed to speak for 100 people, and I remember my first speech I went to, I was so nervous, I actually threw up on the way there. This is what I'm talking about. That challenge of pushing through that fear. Of committing to it. And you need to know that as you do it, it's going to be hard. That's the whole point of this talk. It's not easy. You don't have to have a death sentence or some life-changing experience to do it. It just takes resolve. And so when you pull out this form and you start writing in it, all kinds of things can happen. Oh, it's sunny. I should be at the beach. Oh, my friend doesn't have one, so I can't do it. I have to make a copy. I'll do that next week. Or maybe it's, I have fears, but I have no idea. Because the ego blocks this stuff. It blocks us from becoming liberated. That's its whole goal. But if you push through and challenge yourself through this, what you will find on the other side is something absolutely unbelievable. And while it is stressful in the moment, stressful as hell sometimes, what comes is so worth it. I want to challenge you all to something. Let's all stand up. Together we stand here at the edge of greatness, gathered in possibility. This whole day is about possibility. And in this moment, you have the opportunity to resolve to liberate yourself from fear. I'm going to ask you a question. And if you agree with the question, I'd like you to give me a yes like you mean it. Are you ready to master fear?
Yes!
One more time, even louder. Are you ready to master fear?
Yes!
And even louder, are you ready to master fear?
Yes!
Love it! Let's get started. Thank you.